After a summer of wondering when and then wondering if the Pittsburgh Penguins and Sidney Crosby are now close to a contract, this coming from the ultimate source, Sidney Crosby, speaking at the NHLPA media event in Las Vegas on what was actually Monday afternoon, Vegas time, evening here on the East Coast. Sidney Crosby used the phrase, pretty optimistic. When asked if it would drag on into the season, he said, no, I don't know what day, but where it's been pretty positive is what Crosby said. So we can take all of that worry and wonder. Now, I know some of you were like, he's never going to leave. Listen to me. When sources say I don't want anything good or bad out there, a few warning bells should go off. They certainly did with this reporter. So we tried to keep it within the guidelines or the guardrails there, but it looks like everything, all's well, will in fact end well. The other thing Pittsburgh Hockey Now has reported this summer, that there were a couple of free agents waiting in line behind Sidney Crosby. No, Sid didn't tip his hand on how many years. In fact, he kind of dodged that question on how many more years he wants to play. Said every season takes a different toll on your body. We do have the audio from Vegas, courtesy of the Pittsburgh Penguins, and that would be
that contract
right
get
there.
signed before camp, or are you just going to let it play out? Like, could you see a scenario where you play the season?
No. I think I'm pretty optimistic it's going to get done. I mean, I don't know what day specifically, but it's been really positive, and hasn't been a difficult process at all. So I'm pretty optimistic that something will get done.
Where do you see the group? I mean, you guys obviously haven't made the playoffs the last 2 years. Haven't been in the second round since 2018.
Yeah.
You're not getting any younger, of course, and winning is at the top of your list. Like, how do you sort of balance all that of being a Penguin for life but wanting to win?
Yeah, I think that's just something where there's going to be expectations every year, predictions, that sort of thing. Obviously, we're pretty close the last couple of years, a point or two 2 years in a row. Things, the season feels so much different. If you get that extra 2 points and you get in the playoffs, you're feeling way different about it than if you come up short. So, we like every year, I think there's been some movement and things like that, but we've been right there the last couple of years, and I think for me personally, the way I look at it is if we can find some way to get over that hump and get into the playoffs where we haven't, and I think trying to use some of that momentum that we finished with last year, would be great. We finished, really strong. I think we all felt pretty good about hanging in there the way that we did, and I think we're just hoping that we can be a little more consistent in a few areas, and hopefully that'll get us into the playoffs.
Alrighty, so there you go. From the horse's mouth, pretty optimistic that he and the Penguins will get a deal done. Now let's talk about a couple of those things that Sidney Crosby raised regarding last season transferring into this season. I think maybe we've talked without being overly aggressive about it, about that kinetic energy. I know the Penguins brought in Erik Karlsson last summer. It should have wiped the slate clean, but I'm telling you, there was some negative juju that carried over from the end of the 22-23 season into last year. I mean, don't forget, that 22-23 Penguins team was like a 95% chance to make the playoffs into April and just fumbled away opportunities, losing to Columbus, Chicago. These were the teams they should have wiped off the map, gave up late leads to do it, and there was a dark energy that carried over when they missed the playoffs for the first time in 16 years. There was a little something different. Brian Rust at the end of the season said, no, this late rally, everyone feeling good, it hurts worse. I'm willing to bet that hurt evaporated. And the memory that stuck from last season, the feeling that stuck from last season, was the positive. What did they go? 8-1-2 in their final 11 games. So that was such a, or actually 8-1-3, I think. That was huge for the team because they actually, for the first time in a couple of years, put some sort of positive string together that went beyond a couple of years. Did Sidney Crosby ever consider leaving? We'll never know. And the answer to that probably is no. I will caution you before you say a hard no and just dive into belief, because don't forget, 2 years ago, everyone assumed Chris Letang and Evgeny Malkin were begging to stay. The reality was both of them had begun to consider other possibilities, and I wonder if the thought has or did cross Crosby's mind. I suppose it doesn't matter. That's a moot point, because Crosby will be there to raise the youngins, like Rutger McGroarty, whom he's been texting with since the Penguins acquired him. There's a couple of young players on the Penguins roster, or maybe a couple of young players on the roster. This training camp is going to be wild, to say the least, because there's so many forwards for so few spots. But Valtteri Pustin and Jack St. Ivany, kids down in the minors like Tristan Brose and Vasily Ponomarev, probably has a very good shot to make the NHL roster, and Ville Koivunen. Those kids, Kyle Dubas, Penguins president and Penguins president of hockey operations /GM. This is, he wants those players to get around Crosby as much as possible. And I can't think of a better sort of role model. I suppose now that Crosby is firmly in place and this story can be put to bed finally, once he signs the contract sometime in the next week. I mean, he's in Vegas now, so he'll be there for a couple of days. He'll probably come back. Kyle Dubas will be in Buffalo this weekend at the Prospects Challenge. So let's say Tuesday, they might do it, or maybe Dubas goes back to Pittsburgh and the two meet up on Sunday and get things ironed out. That's kind of what we're looking at. That was certainly the impression. Hopefully you heard that in his voice as well. He's like, no, it's not going to drag on into the season. So I think we can expect a contract here probably the next week or two. All righty, like, comment, subscribe to this channel. We will do a live chat on Wednesday. It's always a blast, and I actually put some headphones on, so if there's any sound issues, believe me, I've made wholesale changes. If there's any sound issues, I will absolutely know about it. Check us out on PHN, PittsburghHockeyNow.com. In fact, I'll post the link to the Breaking Crosby story, and we'll talk live with the live chat on Wednesday. Take care. Have fun.